Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing really good. Yeah, um, really good. Got caught up with a little bit of sleep last night after uh, everything that happened the night before Friday night. Being woken up in the morning and then it was storming a little bit and so forth. Put on a really good light show, that's for sure. And I found out that definitely was tornadoes, not here in Minnesota. Sorry about that. I know I keep trying to get a little bit more comfortable with holding onto the phone this morning. Anyway, yeah, like I said, not any tornadoes here in Minnesota, but definitely it was one of the Dakotas, or maybe even both of them. I'm not entirely too sure. So, but you know what? Hold on one second. I'm going to turn off the air conditioner here a minute. There we go. There. I feel like I'm having to be talking over it. And I don't want to. So, anyway, but yeah, yesterday, yeah, like I said, I got caught up on a little bit of sleep, so feeling a lot better. But yeah, yesterday was a really good day. We went to the quilt show. That was awesome. I had a really good time. I know, unfortunately, while there, my knees, especially my right knee, just kept locking up on me. And I was fine at first, and then after walking around for a little bit, for whatever reason, it kept locking up on me. And I was able to get it to pop at one point, but it just would not stop. It just kept going. And we got through some of the. Can I put my legs down? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Stretchy. Yeah, mommy, stretchy. Well, I was making sure that you weren't down there, so I didn't want to hit you or anything. Oh, okay, mom. Okay, mom. Hi, mom. You're such a silly. Yes, you are. You're such a silly girl. Silly girl. But anywho, I know I keep doing that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we got through all of the all of the quilts, viewing all the ones who got awards. Basically, oh my gosh, there were some beautiful quilts, and I tried to do the best I could to take pictures, to post. I haven't posted anything yet, but pictures just can't do justice with some of these. I mean, wow, like this one that really sticks out in my head. It was very Indian, and I'm talking about, people, basically people from India, okay, that culture. It was very inspired by that. It was a Mandela. I think I pronounced that right. But anyway, that was basically the central focus. The fabrics that were used, also the artist or artists, I'm not entirely too sure because some of them had multiple artists, did and also incorporated crochet work, a lot of bead work, sequins. I mean, it even, well, the border, instead of doing a standard, squared border, they did a scallop border all the way around. I mean, that's a lot of work to begin with. But then they added even more work on the edges, and I'm talking about the edge, not the flat part of the edge, but where the seam is, where basically they stitched the two sides together. Oh my gosh, they did bead work in there even. It was like, I mean, we're talking years worth of work that went into this quilt. And it's not a quilt that you use. This would be a wall hanging quilt, most definitely. I mean, it was just gorgeous. And that one really stuck out at me big time. So, and there were some that were doing counted cross stitch, that incorporated counted cross stitch. Some, and these were not patterns, like print patterns on the fabric. These were ones that they did themselves. Then there was also, oh, I forgot about those. There was a couple, especially the one everybody was really enthralled with, and understandably so. There was also some that just did that did embroidery work, not kind of cross stitch, but one, it was a leopard. I think maybe a snow leopard. I'm not too sure. Basically, what they did was they set it up first, with doing the line drawing. Then they painted the fabric, and then with the majority of it, they did stitch painting, basically, thread painting. So it was a combination of regular painting and then painting with thread. Oh my gosh. And then it was turned into a quilt, a wall quilt. And the scene was this leopard basically on a tree. Well, I don't want to say on a tree, but it looked like it was maybe coming down from a tree. I'm not too sure. I think I got a picture of that one. I can post that one. And of course, unfortunately, you won't be able to see the needlework. But, and we're talking tiny, tiny stitching, and then going around those spots, and then in the leaves there were branches and leaves, and with this tree and everything, and it was just like, I mean, that took years to work on. I mean, years to do. And I mean, that's a labor of love. Both of those quilts that I just mentioned, both of them were a labor of love. Man, it's just amazing, awesome work, and it's just mind-blowing. So, if you've never been to a quilt show, yeah, I highly recommend going to one. But there are also, of course, vendors there, selling stuff and everything. Actually, one vendor, after we got done looking and so forth, before hitting the vendors, I just wanted to sit a minute. It was like, well, I had my cooler, had my pocketbook, but then I also had my cooler in with me. So I had my insulins with me because I hadn't eaten yet, and I wanted to get something to eat at some point. I'll admit I was getting a little bit tired, especially with the situation with my knees, and then dragging that stuff around, and I was getting hungry and so forth. But I was just like, okay, I just need to sit a minute. And I sat down, got my stuff arranged and so forth, and I happened to catch out of the corner of my eye this one vendor that was off to my right, and I happened to notice the sign, how they'll, and of course, a lot of times they'll bring their own banners or what have you to hang on the walls of the booths, but the show coordinators, will have the signage up there to let everybody know who's, where, that their booth is that one, basically. It's usually a plain sign or what have you. But anyway, I happened to catch that sign. I don't remember the company name. But what was funny was where they were from. Yep, you guessed it, Vegas. I was like, People just won't leave me alone. No, it was funny. Actually, well, I talked to her, and she was selling steam irons, really nice ones. I gotta tell you, these were some nice steam irons. If it wasn't for the price, I probably would have bought one. They were like a couple $100, and I didn't have a couple $100, and I didn't want to be spending that kind of money anyway. So, but oh, excuse me, and at that point, I had no need for a steam iron. Now I do, but that's a little bit later. But anyway, I talked to her. She's actually from Florida, but she makes trips out to Vegas for, the company, and also she does shows in California and so forth. So we were talking about some things like Valley of Fire, and also the trip down to Cali and everything, talking about Zizek's Road, if you've ever done that trip between Vegas and LA or San Diego, basically SoCal. It's like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about as far as Zizek's Road. And she was just like, yeah, what is up with that exit? Is this somebody's name, like last name or something like that? And I was just like, no, it was actually a spa resort. And I told her about that there's a documentary up on YouTube about it and so forth. So go check that out. It's spelled ZZYZX Road. So if you're curious about it, go check it out. It's quite interesting history with what happened. So yeah, we were talking a little bit, and then I went and sat back down, and then I never got a chance to see the vendors there, but that's okay. Caught up with Angie, and I was just like, I'm gonna go grab something to eat. I'm really getting hungry. She's like, okay, we'll catch up with you over there. It's like, okay, because Megs was with us also. So anyway, we went over, or I should say I went over, and well, first I used the restroom, and then grabbed something to eat. Of course, I didn't have much in the way of food options, but I was kind of curious about this taco in a bag. That's what it's called, a taco in a bag. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what is that? So basically it's nachos in a bag. So, okay. Basically what they do is they open up a bag of nacho chips, like Doritos. Okay, only they weren't Doritos. And then they throw some taco meat in there. And then you can go put in, they have a station for toppings. So, and I threw some toppings in there. I was like, okay. And and it also came with a cookie, so I was like, okay, this is cool. But then they were asked if I wanted anything to drink. Nothing sounded good, and I'm like, oh, I'll just do my water. But then later, I'm like, yeah, I'm wishing I had something, some sort of soda or something. Fortunately, they had Diet Mountain Dew, so that worked out really good. I haven't had Diet Mountain Dew. The only soda I've really had since becoming diabetic is zero sugar Sprite. I've really been hooked on that, but I really needed something. So, but I kept hearing them tell everybody else that all they really had in the way of diet was concerned is Pepsi Zero. And I'm like, I don't want cola. I haven't been a cola drinker in years. And but they had the Mountain Dew, so at least I know that that's an option in the future. So, yay. That worked out good. So, yeah, the only other one exhibit that I really wanted to see is the grandmother's quilts. So we went to see that. And actually, Angie and Megs caught up with me there in the concession area. And we started talking with the ladies there. Actually, Angie did. And I was just kind of keeping to myself at first. The table, the concession area bumped up against the river. And after looking at Google Maps, because I was like, I wonder what river this is. It looked like it was flowing in the wrong direction. I'm like, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just I'm disoriented or something, not being familiar with the area. Sure enough, it was flowing in the wrong direction. But the way the storm, we had backlash, from the storms that we're still going through. Some it was a little bit windy, and so that was driving the water to go the opposite direction. But come to find out, it was the Mississippi River. So that was a treat for me, because I've been across the Mississippi a few times on the southern end, and being on the northern end, it's so much skinnier. I don't know what other sort of word that you can use, but yeah, it's really quite amazing, knowing what it's like on the southern end down there at the Delta, compared to what it is as you're getting closer to the source. And it's my understanding with the source, it is so thin you can straddle it with both legs, and it's like, wow, I've got to see that. So yeah, because let's face it, it does turn into a mighty river further south. So yeah, but anyway, I also wanted to mention the grandmother's quilts. I kind of got blown away with those exhibits as well. Basically, they were ladies from the group that was hosting the convention. And so we were going through and so forth, and came up across this one exhibit. It had 3 quilts in it, 2 from one person and 1 from another. I don't remember what the third one was, but the one that was, I don't want to say donated, but, being exhibited from one person, they were across from each other. And they were sewn by her great-great-grandmother, who sewed them on a wagon train back in the 1880s. Yeah. Completely blew my mind. And they were in such good condition. You would swear that they weren't very old. But, I mean, we're talking 140-year-old quilts here. Very well kept. And just completely blew my mind, because with reading the background on them, her great-great-grandmother, that wagon train started off in Ohio and ended in Oregon. And the thing that really was blowing my mind is my own situation, being originally from Michigan, thinking about, the travels that I've done, and winding up on the West Coast also, basically, even though it was Vegas, I did wind up on the West Coast, and at least visited the Pacific anyway. And here I am standing in between 2 quilts that basically did the same journey. And it's just like, wow, that was a revelation. That was just, that energy was just like, whoa. And she sewed both of them. And of course, this is back before electricity, I mean, yeah, they had the foot-pumped sewing machines, but no, these are hand-sewn. Because, I mean, where are you going to put a sewing machine on a wagon? So, especially one of those sewing machines, it's just not going to happen. Not when you need other supplies. I mean, everything that you needed, you had to have on that wagon. And you also need to have space to be able to have someplace to sleep at nighttime, too. Especially during inclement weather. Yeah. Oh, you getting your mommy? Getting your mommy. So yeah, that was mind blowing. Seeing those 2 quilts, and I got pictures of them. Ow! I got pictures of those too. Gotta get the little girl. And then there was another quilt that was there that was sewn. I think it was back 1915, if I remember correctly. 13 or 15, something like that. I know it wasn't any older than 1915. But the reason why that one blew my mind is because of what I want to do with these. They're not appliques, they're iron-on transfers, basically. They're basically embroidery patterns that you can, it's from a company. They own three different brands, but this one in particular is Aunt Martha's. And they're just basically line art, okay? And you take them and you do an iron-on transfer, or you can trace them onto fabric and then and do some sort of embroidery. A lot of women will, they might do embellish a little bit with like maybe some satin stitching or what have you, with filling in areas or whatever, but a lot of will do basically the line art. And with either back stitch or outline stitch or something like that. And that's basically what this quilt was blocks of like different floral patterns or some sort of design or what have you, of embroidered line art. And it was just like, and then it was, they were all sewn together with strips of fabric. And at first, well, everybody around me was just like, wow, that's a lot of work and so forth. And it's amazing, this quilt's over 100 years old and so on and so forth. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something that is being missed here. So I kept looking at it and I'm like, I'm noticing with each of the blocks that it was a different sewer. You could just tell by the way the sewing is that it was a different fingerprint. And especially this one block, all the blocks, with the exception of this one, use the same color or same shade of red thread, except for this one. It was slightly darker, and I'm like, wait a minute. And also, it wasn't just the fact that it was slightly darker. It looked like they had used, maybe the others had used, maybe, say, for instance, 2 strands of floss, and she used 3 or something like that. So it was a little bit thicker also. And, or at least that block was a little bit thicker also. And then that's when I noticed that there was handwriting that was stitched. It wasn't necessarily somebody had, handwritten like a signature or some sort of wording or what have you. This was actually stitched. And I looked at it first, I thought, well, maybe these are the flower names or something, and then it occurred to me, no, I'm looking at people's names. And I'm like, I'm right. They were all different people, probably women, who sewed each of these blocks, and then it was all stitched together over 100 years ago. I'm like, wow. That was just really, really cool. So, yeah, that was really awesome. Plus, in there, they had an exhibit of artists who did sewed up gemstones, not actually sewing gemstones into a quilt, but pictures of a gemstone that was quilted. Yeah. And it was all embroidered, stitch painting, basically. It's like, wow. And then they had another exhibit of, it was basically a challenge to do quilts based off of the poppy. Okay, and it was, one person, of course, did Wizard of Oz, most of them, and then there was also a color palette that they had to follow also. One person did the Wizard of Oz, but most of them did the tributes back to the Buddy Poppy and the history with that. Some did do tributes to like family members who had passed away at different, I don't want to say different phases, but like this one, they did a tribute to a lost relative or somebody who was lost during World War II, basically during Operation Tiger, which was basically the preparations for, basically the training exercises for D-Day, okay? Something that my grandfather had also participated in. So, yeah, that was, there was a tribute there. There was also a tribute between two, there was letters that were found in somebody's, I think it was their grandmother's trunk or something. It was the last letter that they had written to the family member before they died over in the war, World War II. Most of the tributes were to World War One, of course, which is where the Buddy Poppy, that tradition came from. I believe it was the Battle of Verdun. After everything was said and done, there, you know, it was, let's just face it, it was a mess, beyond a mess. And despite all the carnage and everything, there was the very first thing that came into bloom was the poppy. So amongst all that carnage and everything, and that's the reason for the Buddy Poppies, in case you're wondering. And someone did a tribute to when the Buddy Poppy actually got started in 1923. So that was really, really awesome to see those exhibits as well. But afterwards, we left there, and she wanted to go to this one craft store that she's familiar with. It's supposed to be really, really awesome, but unfortunately, they permanently closed their doors, so didn't get a chance to go there. But there's a fabric store, a quilting fabric store that we went to that she was familiar with. Very, very nice fabrics, and I definitely bought some. I wasn't going to. I was just like, you know, what am I going to do with them? They're going to be sitting around, blah, 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 blah. But, and there were some that I really, really liked. But there was this one, I was just like, I don't want to walk away from it. It's so cute, and the fabric was, the nice thing about it, the fabrics were really soft also, even like calicos and so forth, you know, more of the broadcloths. Wasn't too keen on their flannels or their soft cloths, you know, like those. Those ones I felt were a little bit to be desired, so I passed on those. But as far as, you know, like I picked up some calicos and so forth. Really, really, some really, really cute ones. I even picked up one that was Halloween. It was, it's so cute. It was orange gingham, kind of like a peachy colored gingham with spiders on it. So it was like on each of the orange colored or peach colored blocks is a spider. So, and they were real tiny spiders. But Angie, so funny. She was just like, I don't understand why somebody would want gingham with ticks on it. I didn't even think about it. They were small enough to look like ticks, but I got it anyway. I just picked up quarter pieces, and then they had the quarter blocks also too, which were a little bit cheaper. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, you know, stopping off, and it's given me some ideas, you know, because I don't want to necessarily buy a lot, you know, pre-made stuff for my new home when I get myself to that point. I'd like to be able to make things, you know, like pot holders, table runners, you know. Of course, I need a new quilt because I tossed mine out, so on and so forth. I'm starting completely from scratch, totally and completely from scratch. There's nothing left. Basically, my old quilt that I had, the really, really big, thick one, wouldn't even fit in a box, even a big box. Trying to ship that, forget it. I was just like, nope. And it needed a lot. It basically needed a new cover for it. And I had the cover that I was working on it. I got rid of it. It basically threw it in with the my craft stuff and sold all that. Someone paid $20 for it. It's like, take it. It's either that or I was going to throw it all out. So, and she mostly bought it for all the yarn that I had. But I figured, she doesn't want it, toss it or whatever. So anyway, so yeah, I did all of that. I just tossed it. I mean, it was a rag, and I'm like, you know what? Let's start clean, fresh from scratch. So, and do what I really wanted to do instead of what I had to do. Yeah, it was a nice quilt. It was very thick. Yeah, it can come in handy for here or what have you. But trying to ship it, it was like, forget it. And then the rest of my blankets that I had, it's like I gave to one of the neighbors because it was just, with doing a move like this, and I was not going to be dealing with yet another storage unit and dealing with all those headaches again and so forth. I'm just like, no, just just get rid of it all for the most part. So yeah, but and of course they weren't going to fit in the suitcase. I barely had enough room, and having trouble enough as it is trying to get my stuff out here. The little bit of stuff that I had to leave behind, like my paperwork. And that all that's really left back there, aside from my the ashes, which I have to send for yet also, is my tarot and oracle cards and a few books and my sewing stuff. And that's it. And I'm just waiting on my friend to get all that together and so forth, so we can get that all sent out, and I can start working on the sewing. I know, exciting. So, yeah. It was a fun day yesterday. I had a lot of fun. Angie asked Megs to get a picture of the two of us together, and that picture turned out awesome. I need to get Angie to email it to me. She sent it to me in a text, and I'm not very tech savvy when it comes to all this phone stuff, and I can't figure out how to be able to download it to my phone. I tried pressing and holding to get the pop-up menu. There's not an option there. I tried the menu option up there. There's nothing up there, so it's like, I don't know. Just gotta, yeah, I'll probably just have her email it to me, make life easier instead of trying to figure it out. But it's a great photo. It really is a great photo. I'd like to be able to share it up on social media and everything, because it's just, especially because the ladies that we wound up having conversations with, it was these 4 friends. A couple of them, they've been friends since high school, or at least since they had gotten married, to their respective husbands and so forth, which is ironically in 1974, the year I was born, and Angie was born a little under a year later. So yeah, it's like, wow, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then of course you had the two of us. We've been friends for 35 years, since junior high. And then Megs, who's just graduated high school, 3 generations sitting there at that table having conversations about, high school and so forth. So, yeah. It was just, and with looking at that picture, it's just like, seeing the two of us, and I was happy to see it because I've seen how much I've changed, how much more relaxed I look and everything, and how happier I am. I mean, yeah, I'm working through things still, and I know that, but I see it. I see it with in the picture with how much my energy has changed. And it's like, yeah. And her and I've gotten closer too, which is awesome. She's a really good person. And she empathizes with what I'm going through because she went through the same thing. You know, not the physical aspect, but she empathizes with that, with being a nurse, you know, and seeing she's had patients who've been battling long COVID and so forth, and it's like, yeah, so she gets it, you know, and she wound up back here. She was born here, not raised here, kind of moved around a little bit with her dad being in the Navy, but and she, when she left home, went to school, she was she wound up in trouble, and by that point her parents were back here, and she wound up back here and coming back home, staying with her parents for a while, and until she could get back on her feet. So, because she wound up in similar situation, basically, and her dad basically told her, come home, and she, same situation, she loved where she lived, you know, hated leaving, and it broke her heart and everything, but it wound up being the best decision of her life because she met her husband. They got married, of course, and everything. They had 2 beautiful children, and it's a very loving family. And to tell you the truth, and we kind of were talking about it a little bit on the way home yesterday. We had a very good conversation with, like, talking about the situation with my father and so forth, with how I was raised versus how she was raised and everything. And with a lot of the toxicity that surrounded me, I thought I was in a loving situation growing up. I really did. And I was with my mother. But of course she had her faults as well. Yeah. And she was talking about, we were basically kind of doing comparisons between our fathers. And in some ways, he had, her father also has some toxic, you know, attributes. But it was always a loving environment and everything. And I thought that, for the most part, I was in a loving environment, even though I was surrounded by toxicity, not just with the parental situation, but also external family, like with my grandmother on my mother's side. If you know anything about that situation, you know what I'm talking about. A little bit on my father, some on my father's side as well, and of course a lot on my mother's side. And with, you know, it's like I was telling her, she was just like, you know, if I would have known that you were living in this sort of situation, I would have invited you over to my house more or something, and just invited you over, periods. That way you could see it or whatever. And I would have, and I told her right out, it wouldn't have mattered, because I thought that the environment that I was in was a normal environment, and even as an adult, with meeting people who have taught to me about, you know, what sort of family life they had and growing up and so forth. Like one friend I had, I didn't believe her. I still, you know, even though she's passed on and so forth, it isn't until now really that I see, you know, that, oh, I in many ways I was envious of her, but I questioned how, you know, it's like, no, it's not true, you know, you're lying or whatever. That's even because, especially after going through my near-death experience that I had a year and a half ago, I don't know what else to call it, situation I had happened when I had the stress test done. even with, and finally finding out what real love is, and coming back and being back here on this plane, I'm like, it can't exist here. It doesn't exist here. But after being here, I mean, yeah, no matter what, we're all going to have our flaws, we're all going to have our differences, we're all going to have our issues and so forth, no matter what. And she made a good point. It's what you are, of course, the very first thing you have to be able to do is talk to each other. And if you can't have that open communication, then it's going to make for a very toxic environment. It's going to make for a toxic relationship. And you have to learn, it's how you learn from each other, and you set those boundaries with each other, and it's also, you learn about yourself through that relationship and what it is that you're willing to tolerate. Is this a situation that I'm living in? Is it a situation that I am able to tolerate? And if you decide that you can, that it is something that you can love, basically, then you have to do that. You have to try to do that anyway. But if it's something that you can't, then you need to walk away. And you need to know how to walk away. And you would also need to know when to walk away. So, and I see that, with living here, actually living in a loving family environment for the first time in my life, really, it's like, wow, because like Rick, he even admits, he used to be I don't want to say he used to be an alcoholic, but he had an alcohol problem, but he walked away, gave it up. He claims he used to be a ladies' man, but it's like, Angie and I just laugh. It's like, okay, you believe what you want to believe. It's like, yeah, no, you're not Gene Simmons. Oh my goodness, he's he is goofy. He is charismatic and everything. If he wasn't married, I don't think I could still yet. Because there's just certain things I just no, completely turns me off. I just couldn't. I don't find him attractive in any of that sort of way. But I could. But I think we would be friends even outside the marriage. We would just be friends because I just wouldn't be. Yeah, there's just nothing there on my end at all. So, and I would just want to make sure that's clear, okay? But yeah, if anything, I'd probably be introducing them. But no, just, it really is, because I see how they work things out and so forth, and how they have worked things out over the years and everything. And it's just like, it's a total turnaround from what I'm used to with things. And they have worked things out over the years and everything, not to say that they hadn't run into their issues or whatever, but they worked them out, So, yeah. That's what I look for. And it's given me, because to be honest with you, like I said, after going through my NDE, and going through all of that, I'm like, there's no way that can exist here. I had given up, to be perfectly honest. In many ways, I had given up. And being here in this situation gives me hope. that maybe I might be able to have a relationship of my own. So, not that it's my top priority or anything, because I know my mission in life also, but it'd be nice to have somebody to share it with. But I know I have a lot of work to do in here before I can let that happen. A lot of trust issues. That was a big topic. And she was like, yeah, I'm surprised that you've trusted me this long. And I'm like, well, I gotta tell you, I do find it difficult to open up with people initially. And she's the opposite. She opens up right away, and then it's like, okay, then when you give me the excuse to not trust you. But me, I don't trust anybody from the get-go. And you have to earn my trust. And then if you do, until you prove to me otherwise, I consider you to be a friend for life. But when you do start to do things, I mean, yeah, I give and take or whatever, but bye. But I do have quite a few friends that I've been friends with for many years. Many years. And some not so much. Quite a few of them I've lost. But yeah, this has been a good environment, but it's been a good situation. And I'll admit, I'm ready to find my own place, but I know I gotta get there too, financially even. So, but yeah, this has been good. And of course, with the physical aspects too, with the health. So, anyway, I should get moving because I do have to cook today. So, anyway, and I know it's getting late with time on this as well. So, anyway, I love you guys. I'll talk to y'all soon.